And we are live. Folks, welcome to the Tavern Chat podcast live stream. It is a fireside chat with none other than Scott Taylor. He has the Folio, Art of the Genre, over 70 Kickstarters under his belt. And I've never blasted him about any of them, which tells you he's doing something right. Scott, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
It's just, we were discussing before the show that I feel like I've known Scott for years, and in a way I have, and we've conversed a lot on Facebook private messages, but we haven't had a chance to actually converse and talk. So right. I think this is going to be a good time. But before I get into a lot of questions that I have for you that are probably more pertinent to now, I want to hear about the past, and I want to. You have a love for 1E because you do everything for 1E and 5E. I came in with 1E. I want to know how you came into gaming. How old? What system? How it happened?
Yeah.
Bear it all.
I mean, I probably came into it like a lot of people. In the early '80s. I was born in '71, so I had my prime, teenage years during the 80s and that run. Right. So I first saw Dungeons and Dragons in the Sears and Roebuck catalog. The red box. And I begged my mom to get it because I thought it looked so incredible. I got it and I didn't know how to play it. So it sat around for a while until finally at my middle school, somebody or one of the teachers actually started a D&D club, and I went to it, and it was closed down after about 2 months because of the demon scare or whatever. Our town wouldn't allow it to happen. But from that point, just that 2 months, I was hooked. The guys that I played with, and we just took it back to our houses, and I played from there. But it was that original red box. It was the Elmore cover, and I fell in love with the storytelling of the art, right. Which is why I call my company Art of the Genre. And obviously I play the game in many games, but it's always been the art that has motivated me to, play or storytell in it. So it was one of my quests kind of to, make contact with a lot of artists in the industry that worked in gaming. And I've had a great opportunity to work with so many of them. And that's what I do with my company. That's what I do with my Folio. And it's why the Folio, instead of being a module that has a cover that denotes what's going on in the module, for the most part, they're just covers like a Dragon magazine. Because right. I so love those Dragon magazines. They're just great art on the cover, and then within, you're going to get a special cover and stuff like that. So that's fine.
Well, a lot of the artists that you have worked with you were Dragon magazine artists sure. that are huge, and as Mark Clover says, the TSR art historian. But I think in a way you're a bit more than that, because you're bringing us new pieces of art a lot of times yeah. from classic TSR era artists, painters, for lack of a better phrase. I used to for me, my defining artwork, because I came in with the AD&D 1E, and it was always the Paladin in Hell. It was always the most atmospheric sure. one for me, and of course
Sutherland, yeah.
Yes, and in my book, for some reason, I guess because it was so much black ink, that part of it is way too black and part of it is faded. So my original, I had to get a second copy on the secondhand to see what it actually should properly look like. But it was always artwork like that spurred my imagination. It was like, that's awesome. And then I found Dragon magazine at B. Dalton's bookstore back in the day. And I still remember my first Dragon issue was issue 66. I think that was a Caldwell cover. And it just, again, had nothing to do with the contents. But you looked right. at the cover and you were like, this just, it speaks. It right. speaks. And to remember, all these years later, the actual, again, I got issue 66, went home, read it, and got my next week's allowance and walked down to the mile to the bookstore to buy issue 65 because those were the two issues they had on the shelf, and I bought the latest issue, figuring later is always better. But then it's like, well, now I need what I need. I need to get another one, and I was hooked. But I wouldn't have even probably noticed them if it were the cover artwork. And it's strange to say that but then again, my niece at the time that I put out, really the one that I put out was Swords of Wizardry Continual Light, and James Shields did the cover. It was really stock art that nobody it was rejected from another company, and he put it out as stock art to his backers on Patreon, and I used the cover, and I got my proof copy, and I showed it to my niece, and my niece was 6. And she grabbed it out of my hands and holds it up and goes to my wife, Auntie, this sells. This cover sells. Because it's a dragon and people fighting the dragon. And I was like, and I looked at her and went, really? She's like, Uncle, you chose to cover it. You should know it sells because good art sells.
It can, yeah.
In the mouth of babes. And I found that very striking and very intuitive for a young idea of Dungeons and Dragons. We've only played a handful of RPG sessions, but she's very enthralled by it, and of course can't wait for me to retire from social media. So Tenkara, my place, when she role plays that with the mother. Like, hold on a second, is she on YouTube? Is she recording a YouTube channel? No. She's just pretending she is as my future replacement when I get deathly ill. So all right. So Scott, you came in then around. I came in probably around 80, 81. I'm 4 years older than you, but It's still my old gaming group I was always the oldest. We always had, all 4 years from that high school. I'd be a senior. You'd have somebody to 9th grade. You'd have that expanded group, and the ages didn't make a difference as long as you all were enjoying the game. But now, that's a long time. Are you one of the people, like in my case, I stepped away from gaming for a little bit over 10 years because of life issues, still collecting. I think that, real gamers don't stop buying, but you might stop playing. But did you ever take a break from gaming, or have you been doing it straight through?
Well, no, I've never stopped. And to answer Mark's question, I was the full manager of a B. Dalton in the 90s.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah, that's a lot of people want B. Dalton. And I always wanted to manage the Walden books, but I got B. Dalton. So, anyway, I never stopped playing. I think I went to college and I went to IU, and I was like, I am done. I'm gonna be a different person. I'm not gonna role play. And I went to my dorm, and like the first week I was there, I heard somebody playing next door, and I was, they were like, "Hey, you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I guess I took a week off in my life. I don't know. That's it. Yeah.
God bless you. A week.
Yeah,
one fucking week. But by the way, as I mentioned before, I'm a retired cop. The F word is part of my vernacular that will never leave me. I use it in many different ways. But I took off from March of 97 until, I don't know, 2008, 2009, when I found Fantasy Grounds. Because I found Fantasy Grounds, and I was like, all right. Because when we initially stopped that group, and there's something about, it's the same gaming group from high school through college, through the after college years, and all you needed was me to go. I'm out of the academy. I'm going to be working 5:30 at night to 2 o'clock in the morning with my weekends on Wednesdays and Thursdays. How can we game? And it was like, we can't. And then the group just fell apart. So when I found Fantasy Grounds, I was like, oh, wait a second. You can actually use a computer to role, not just play EverQuest. I had done that.
Right. RPGs, yeah, the MMOs, yeah.
With my old gaming group, but which yeah, we still socialize. It just the gaming had stopped. The
Right.
RPGing, the tabletop gaming. So my gateway back into tabletop RPGs was Fantasy Grounds, and it's a system, a VTT that I had a great time with there, and trying to figure out how to use it as a DM. I don't want to say I became suicidal, but it overwhelmed me and what I needed from it. But you, of course, I 3E, but I was never playing 3E. I bought 4E. I wasn't gaming during that time, but I was still buying the rule systems because you're not actively in a group, you're not actively gaming, but I still had that attachment to games.
Yeah.
I would
My
go away
transition
for
there,
a weekend and bring a book with me.
right?
Gotta bring the new Forgotten Realms book.
Yeah, with that 4E, I think I was a lot like a lot of people who I loved 3 so much and 3.5
Right.
that I just, as soon as Pathfinder came out, I was at Gen Con when they had the huge pyramid of them. And they just saw them go where they were just gone. That we went to Pathfinder and then went to 5E. So 4E is the one edition that I've never experienced in D&D. I played every other edition, but I've never played 4E. I think I'm gonna have like one reference book maybe for it on my shelf that had to do with the Underdark because I needed it for something. But that was the one I didn't play. But that was my transition. So I went 3.5 Pathfinder 5E. That's how that kind of went. And obviously, I always play AD&D throughout that, but I was playing multiples. Yeah.
Well, and I can see that transition. And my 5e experience is actually playing in the Friends and Family D&D Next playtest, which we had some amazing sessions, and we had some sessions that everybody wanted to pull their teeth out, and because the rules were in flux. So you'd have a version of the rules that you thought, as old school gamers, maybe was amazing and perfect. And our GM, God bless Greg. Greg Christopher put the group together, and he put together a group of, we want a 4E player, we want a 3 player, we want an old school gamer. I want somebody who doesn't really play D&D. He tried to mix and match, see how it was going to play, and the sessions that I wanted to pull my hair out were the ones the 4E player loved, because it was
more of that. Yeah, his bent there.
Yeah, and in the end, I think we did it for about, I don't know, maybe about 4 months, and then our Greg, our GM, was like, "All right, that's it. I'm burned out." I'm like, what? He goes, "Yeah," and we were like, "Wow, you're doing a great job." He goes, "I am burned out of having to relearn rules weeks because they keep on changing."
Right.
So then so he's like, "All right, who wants to keep this group going?" I was like, "Huh?" I goes, "I need a break. I want to play." I was like, and it's like, "Well, don't look at me." Again, we're doing we're doing it over. Was it Roll20? It might have been a predecessor to Roll20. And finally, it's just like, if you don't pick up the reins, we got no group. So I went up running AD&D 1A, which was my spot. But going back to it, I realized that as a GM, I didn't want to refer back to the DMG because I couldn't find shit in the DMG anymore. Except for the fact that my certain pages were discolored from my finger always getting there.
Right.
But all right, I already had Osric in paperback, and I was like, Osric is easier to reference. It's the rules without the stuff that we jettisoned. Like, as a 1E player, did you use weapon speed?
No.
No.
I mean, yeah, because you typically go off of party, and weapon speeds vary without the party, so you just do the standard unless somebody is attacking alone. I guess we would
right, and it was kind of like, did you use let's see, weapon, armor, AC adjustments?
No, I mean those are miserable.
Yeah,
like if you want to slow a game down, just use those. And they all basically do the same thing. Yeah, it's miserable. But I would say I was incredibly impressed. Recently, I was playing Hackmaster, and although that's a very crunchy game, the armor system in that and the weapon speeds do play, I mean, it takes a lot because you're parrying every attack. So it's just rolling against people, which takes a lot of time. But I really love the way that they did the armor in that and the weapon speed. I thought were pretty nice.
I think they did a great job with Hackmaster, and I actually had the Hackmaster 5e basic when it first came out. The first 5 books were like $10 a piece, so I grabbed like, I don't know, 6 or 7 copies, whatever the bundle was, and I was like, oh, when we do our yearly gathering with the old gaming group, I'll do what I always do, which is give out old school gaming material from the new from the new companies. So we didn't do that this past year because of COVID, but I'll have to double up, I guess.
Now, I've got to ask you a question. Do you get together with your guys once a year?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I have gotten together with my high school friends for 7 to about 12 days every year since 1990, except for last year. It got canceled because it's always typically around July, and nobody could fly, nobody could do anything, so we get together every year. That's the first year we've missed in 20 years. Yeah, so we do that too. Yeah, no wives, no nothing. We just rent a place and go.
Oh no, we just do it. For us, it's usually it's a single day, and actually
you don't do wait. You don't do a week to 12 days.
No. And actually, my parents have a place in the Poconos, which I'm sure I could use if we wanted to, but the wives and kids like there's always somebody like I could make the time, but others can't. But with us, actually, it was because we would get together irregularly after 97, but you never knew. It's like somebody's moving, you get together, and then you go out afterwards and you talk, and you were always there for each other. But we lost one of our core gamers on 9/11. My friend Paul Benedetti was part of that group, and he worked for Aeon in the towers. So he was never found. So after that, we're like, all right, you know what? On a yearly basis, around his birthday. So it means usually at the end of May, early June, we're going to get together. And we've done it every year. Do we game? No. We play video games, watch YouTube videos, bullshit, drink, act like, laugh, act like high school students. If you want to get your nipples pinched, during a year, somebody's going to come up behind you and go either, hey, you've lost weight, or hey, you put on boobs. It's what but these are the friends that you've been, socializing with on this level. And part of that bond that we had was because we, of course, were gamers. I think that is something that we never gave up. I mean, it's the same group that we would get together on, like I said, we would play EverQuest, we would play Anarchy Online, did our City Heroes stint. Which was really fun when everybody's on dial-up, because it meant that all your conversations had to be typed out. I literally learned how to type accurately when you have to have fast conversations when you're getting your ass kicked by a mob. It's like, the halfling needs help now, help. But they still occasionally do MMOs. I've lost my feel for MMOs, but transitioning to virtual tabletops when you have a decent, I don't need much from a virtual tabletop. I like to have my voice and video because it adds to it, makes it intimate. But as I think I've recounted this in the past, a couple of years, 20 was really hitting big. They reached out to me and they're like, we've seen you post about Roll20. We'd love to have you record your group. We'd love to share it on our Roll20 website and see what you do and your tricks and techniques. And I was like, I'm really going to disappoint you, because all I use is I use Fog of War to reveal a map. I use a pointer to show where things are, because I refuse to use pogs or minis. I don't use character sheets because you don't have anything for Swords and Wizardry or AD&D at the moment, so I just refuse to use them. I don't use character handouts because I'll just describe what's happening. And you'd probably have to cut out about 90% of the audio, because my group was full of potty mouths and at the very least politically incorrect joking goes on throughout the time.
Right.
And I never got a response to my response. So
they're like, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. Like, we never actually asked that question. We'll just pretend it went away. But VTT have been great. Now we're in the midst of the world of COVID, so really there are some groups that are playing face to face. I know, like North Texas was actually in person last June because Texas was more open than most states, but they only had an attendance, I think, 70 people.
Wow.
And they were all locals because you couldn't fly in even if you wanted to. But I think I get my first dose of my vaccine next Tuesday. It helps to have multiple comorbidities. I never thought of it. Geez, you mean being obese and type 2 diabetic and cancer survivor? Oh, and congestive heart failure? I could put my hand up and get my shot a little bit earlier than everybody else. I will gladly take that. There is something to be had for having health that's less than ideal, I guess. But I don't know how this year's going to be. It's got to be better than last year. But conventions, are you a convention goer or not?
I used to go. I would do two, but that just as a guest. I mean, I've never set up in one. I would go to. I went to Gen Con for about 10 years, about 2005 to 2015. And then because I'm in Southern California, I would go to San Diego Comic Con,
Right.
which isn't a gaming convention, but it's a big convention down here.
Yeah, it's a big geek. It's a big geek convention.
It was a madhouse until it just got to be no fun, even because you couldn't walk. There was just too many people. So those were the two that I would go to typically on a regular basis, but I haven't been into any recently.
Yeah, I mean, I had gone to two conventions in my first part of my gaming career. One was at Columbia University when I was like 19. That one I could just take the train in from Queens out to Manhattan. And then Gen Con, I think in 93 or 94, it was like the 25th anniversary. It was out in Milwaukee. It was crowded back. It was holy shit. As a New Yorker, I was saying there's a lot of people in a very small amount of space. I can't believe how many people we have in here. And the highlight of my Gen Con was TSR had a Planescape. No, it wasn't a Planescape. Sorry, a Spelljammer table with one of the Spelljammer ships full of minis. It was basically some improvised miniature rules that you could just come along, pick up a mini, participate, stick around for the 20 minutes before you got killed, and then walk off. It was a constantly going thing. So I was playing, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I still remember Dale Slade Hanson, who I always remembered Slade. It was like, oh, one of those names from TSR. You'd see it on an adventure and go, oh, I like his stuff. I'll pick it up. He was like, Kid. I'm like, all right, I'm in my 20s, but yeah, Kid works. He goes, listen, I got to go use the bathroom. You can handle this for like 10 minutes? I'm like, what do I got to do? Yeah, it's just like DMing, but just fudge it because there's really no rules. Just high roll wins, and if they lose, kill them. I'm like, sure? Make it sound exciting, but yeah. I'm like, okay. Nearly half an hour later, he comes back. I guess it was like the bathroom, get something to eat, get a smoke break. Right. But I got to say, wow, I actually ran part of an event at Gen Con. It was kind of like a $5 gift certificate I won to the mail order hobby shop for coming in second place in one of the tournaments. Those are the things you hold on to. So I didn't go to convention until years later when I went to North Texas. I think it was 2015. Might have been the first year. Yeah, or 2014. And then I was like, this is pretty cool. And my wife came with me, and she wasn't a gamer. God bless her. She was never a gamer. She humored me when we were dating, and she played a one-on-one Tunnels and Trolls session and humored me to get an idea of what gaming was like. And I was like, this is your hobby. I'm happy. And when you're gaming, I know where you are. Right? You're not out there getting wasted, having people have to make phone calls at it's 8 a.m. Did Eric come home? I don't know. Call the bar. See if he's still at the table there. Not saying that it happened when I was working with me directly, but it happened with others, and I had to find people. You don't want that. But with gaming, your significant others, your family, know where you're at.
They know right where
And
you are. Yeah.
yeah, even if it's at a friend's house or you're gaming at a game store, it's not to listen. If you're going to make an excuse to do something other than gaming, you would actually say you weren't gaming. You were doing something that was a lot less nerd weights here. It's like, oh, well, I'm actually going to the movies, going to the bar, going to the movies, honey. Oh, huh? Going out to a game with a bunch of other people in the 40s and 50s. Have fun. So, but I've been I've been doing like 4 cons a year because the Far Guy games I help run the table, so I get to go to conventions. And this year, this year 2020, I went to TotalCon in February, right as COVID was starting to
that's when everything started to shut down.
Yeah, and it was like, I was there. I was like, hey, this is great. I had to go to the urgent care because I got an upper respiratory infection. I wonder if it's that COVID thing. No, it was an upper respiratory infection. But I used to my conventions to socialize, to see people, I don't even go to necessarily play games. I'll run games, but I go to make those connections that I've been making all those connections now by doing a lot of these live streams. Thank God. It's I think as humans, as people, we miss that physical presence. As much as we like to believe that, well, I don't need others. No, you do.
No, you do.
And I think 2020 has proved that to a lot of us. So now, as I said to you before, this is going to be one hell of a hex crawl. We're going to go off in directions we don't plan on. But I have a question for you.
Sure, go for it.
How did you get into self-publishing? Did you submit stuff to other publishers first and then say, hey, this is pretty cool, I can create? Let me see if I can do my own?
It was kind of the right place at the right time, I think. I remember I was working at Blackgate. I was a blogger for them, and I don't even know if somebody posted it or I saw it on Facebook, but I saw Jeff D did a Kickstarter. This is like 2012, maybe the end of 2012, or maybe it was the end of 2011, like December.
Wait, was this his reimagined artwork?
Right. This was the very first time, and it was like, so he was redoing. I don't even know which one he was. Probably the Egyptian gods, maybe, and I was like, what? I don't even know what that is. And so I kind of went out because I'd worked with him in 2006 and I'd gotten a painting done for him that's actually on Folio number 5. I ended up putting it on Folio 5. But anyway, so I kind of knew him a little bit, just conversing and working with him. And I had done a project called Art Evolution for Blackgate, where I went and had people reimagine the same character, a bunch of famous artists. So I'd gotten in with a lot of people then. And so I kind of knew him and I was like, what does he do? I don't even know what this Kickstarter is. I don't know what that is. Because this is 2011. We didn't know. And I went and looked at it and thought, wow, he got, a few, I don't know how much, maybe 10 grand. I don't know what he got for it. Let's 7 grand. I don't know.
I backed a lot of on. Until I realized I had a lot of art that I was not going to be able to display. But
but anyways, so I went to it, I was like, what does he do? So I looked it up and I had been writing at the time and I had a couple books that I was looking to put out and I was kind of putting out feelers to different publishers, but I wasn't getting any kind of feedback on them positively. And a good friend of mine at the time that I'd gone out and visited a couple times and worked with was Jeff Easley in Wisconsin. And I said, Jeff, do you want to do a project together? You could do the cover for it, some interior illustrations on this book that I've been writing. And he was like, sure. And that was like the Wild West of Kickstarter. It had just come out. Nobody knew what it was. And it was kind of like printing your own money, right? Because it got to a point where it's like, if I have to see another Kickstarter, I'm going to shoot myself in the head, like on Facebook, right? that happened at some point.
Yeah,
but
it
wasn't at that point. It was like, yes, what is this stuff?
It's what is this Kickstarter? Oh, awesome! I need that. I want that.
Right.
And a lot of the ones that were term successful from the early days, or the ones that knew ahead of time, hey, look, I actually have to have more than just a great idea before I hit go live, as opposed to, I've got this great fucking idea, go live. Oh, shit. It was a good idea.
So anyway, I was lucky because I had these artists that I knew, and you could sell stuff, through them because they had this fan base and I really didn't.
Right.
So I put Jeff on the cover, and all of a sudden it was like $8,000 later. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that I could do. And so I was working through that, and I put out a few novels, and I was like, but novels are really, really, really time consuming. And there's a lot to them. And I was putting out light novels, which are a couple hundred pages. So it wasn't like these massive volumes, but it was still a lot. And you start to see the numbers slip a little bit. And I did one with Brom, and I did a couple with Jeff and David Dietrich. And so I was having fun doing it. But all of a sudden, about 2015, I was working at Privateer Press at the time, running their fiction line that they were just getting ready to launch. And I had a contract with them for a year, and I worked with them getting all that set up. And I thought it might be a better time to just see if I can get a module out, because I've gamed my whole life. I still can do this, and I like the artwork. I like putting the art in and everything. Why don't I just try to put out a module? So in 2015, you kind of saw the backlash of people not liking Kickstarter, because by that point it had been 3 years of just getting inundated with Kickstarter. And I was like, and so I put out my first folio, and I think I had a goal like $15,000 or something on it. And I ended up having to pull it. I was like, it just wasn't going to fund. So I pulled it after like 15 days, and I just went in and I said, okay, if I just stripped everything out of maybe me profiting on this, just so I can get this out, what will it be? So I think I dropped it to like $5,000 or something. And I relaunched it, and it funded 7,000 or 8,000, let's say. And then I was like, okay, I can make this work. Just as an extra income kind of thing. And then I started being able to put them out. And I was also working at the time when I was putting these out, I was working as the art director at Gygax magazine. So I had a lot of contact through Gygax, and Gygax was coming out as like Dragon, right? That's what they wanted to be.
Oh, you had the cover. First off, the cover artwork was Dragon magazine artwork. Perfect. The Gygax logo was the same font
as the Dragon,
And you opened it up on that, on the content page, you had that same feel. I mean, nostalgia-wise, I was a very happy young boy again.
Right. And I think the thing that we clashed in with Gygax, and obviously Gygax died of another reason. Right. But the clash within it was some of us, and I won't name names, but just some of us were looking at it and we were like, look, you're making a nostalgia piece. This is basically Dragon magazine. You just changed the word to Gygax. Why isn't this an old school mag? Right. And the ownership was looking at it as it has to be something that encompasses all this new stuff, 13th Age or what, anything else that they wanted to put into it. And it was like, but you're packaging it, in my opinion, was you're packaging it like AD&D. And you're not having AD&D content.
Right. You're aiming it at visually at the very least.
Right.
But you're aiming it at, the older old school gamers. And listen, did I buy every issue of Gygax?
Yes. All 6 of them or whatever they were.
Yes. I think it was 6.
Yeah.
But did I read every article? No. Did I read every article in Dragon magazine? Yeah, I did. Even though, how did I find out about Traveler? Reading about space dwarves. I'm like, what the fuck is this? That must be a cool game. They got space dwarves written in it. But there was a lot of content in Gygax magazine that, dare I say it, years later I could say it, all right, it felt like filler to me. It felt like we needed to fill up some. Just get this article in here about XYZ and filler. And I could have probably done articles about current that. Again, you're aiming at old school gamers. We want to see more about
and it was
whatever, but the old school gaming. Basically.
Right. And it was an interesting time, too, because when I put out that first folio, which I think was 2015 or 2016, I lose the time on it. It was just as Gygax was going through all their craziness. And I just want to say hi to Bruce. I'm glad you got the new Kickstarter. That's awesome. Thank you. But anyway, you're looking at it and you're like, it was right at the release of 5e, right? And I think the first folio, I gave an option of you can get one printed in 1e or you can get one printed in 5e. And then I ended up combining them when I did a reprint of them. And then by issue 2, I was like, I'm just putting 5e and 1e in both. So, but you look at those early ones and nobody really understood as well as I understood 6 years later what 5e was. Like it was new to me too. So I'm like trying to get the right stats in and stuff as I'm playing this. So it was one of those weird things, but it would have been nice if Gygax would have lasted long enough maybe to be a 5e mag. If a lot of people, you could split it 5e or, and maybe have an article in the back or a section in the back for different games like, Savage Worlds or 13th Age or whatever else you want to put in. But anyway, that was a big conflict, and I felt like it was kind of getting shotgunned with a lot of stuff that I didn't think people cared about. And it was one thing I saw today too that was interesting to me. I saw it on Facebook. Somebody had posted, speaking of virtual tabletop, what percentage is played on virtual tabletop. I don't know if you saw that.
Jolly, that was the
I think Jolly did it.
That was the Roll20 Ore Report, which they've lagged behind on. I used to get updates in the mail from Roll20. Damn them, no longer do. But it was very striking to see how
it was huge. How much huge disparity. It was like what is it, like 40 to 50%, and then maybe I don't know what got number 2. It was Cthulhu, maybe got 10, and then it dropped to Pathfinder at 3, and then everything else was like percentage.
Well, for Paizo, Pathfinder 2, and Starfinder. Yeah, their 3 amount to less than 7%.
And I think Cthulhu was
of the
10.
Campaigns.
Right?
Well, you think about it now, and if you haven't been paying attention to Cthulhu recently, their starter box is $25. Comes with the dice, comes with a couple of adventures, and it's all you need to run the later stuff. It is a great value on Amazon. It's even cheaper.
And it's a fun game. I love Cthulhu when I get a chance to play. So I see why they play. And a friend of mine just sent me a text the other day. He was asking me what's the most popular game in Japan, and I think it was Call.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, it was it's a big deal. It was. So I know the game gets love, and I think it outsells by a huge percentage even over D&D in Japan. But anyway, so I was looking at those percentages, and when I did, I thought, if we had gone in that direction, obviously there is a big market for 5e if you wanted to do that, and you could not only get people in 5e, but you could also transition and have them also look at the 1e versions as well. So anyway, it was just one of those times. But that's how I got into Kickstarter, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. I ended up getting in with Stefan at Dwarven Forge, and we did a couple of we did a trilogy for him in the folio. There's like 8 to 11 where I got to actually work with miniatures, which I don't really work with. And then it's just kind of gone on from there until I finally did the first Curse of Roslov Keep, which was my first hardcover. And it was at that moment that I did that, I was like, all my sales were lagging, and it was just like, I don't know if I can keep this up. I think I'm just going to compress them into one hardcover, put this easily on it, and see how it does. And it did very, very well. And that really spurred my business to continue forward. And then the latest one, the Curse of Roslov, which was out in August, and I've just been shipping it the last 2 weeks, did 50,000, which for me is insane.
Oh, those are excellent numbers, especially when you look at Kickstarter. And again, it's no longer minting money. I mean, it's not. You have to work at it. Yeah, you have to work at it, and you've certainly built a rep. But not only do you do projects on Kickstarter, you're doing something that, and I think you started doing this before even Frog God did. Frog God was like, hey, we're going to do our big projects on Kickstarter, but our shorter paperback, adventures, adventure-sized projects on Indiegogo,
Right.
quicker turnaround. Now you're doing projects on both platforms too.
I am, and it wasn't necessarily something that I went into thinking I wanted to do this, but what Kickstarter a couple of years ago, they always change their policy, and they don't tell anybody they changed their policy. So
why would they?
Right. So I had done so many Kickstarters that I was on a list where I just would go on a Kickstarter. I could load it and click it and it would launch. Right. Instead of where they have the review process.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I was like ready to launch a project at some point, and it was like review. I was like, okay, I guess I'll wait the 3 days like everybody else, but I don't know why all of a sudden I got bumped to that position because I've done so many.
Right.
And then I was on that for a while, and then somebody, and some algorithm kicks back to me at some point and says, you've got too many Kickstarters. And I was like, okay, but I was ready to go. And so I was like, I went to Indiegogo and I just took all my information and put it on. This was for my first Black Label, which is currently out, and put it on Indiegogo. I was like, I've got to get this out, and Indiegogo was no problem. It just went right out. And then eventually, days later, so I did an appeal. I was like, why are you locking this? And I did an appeal. I said, look, I've done this many. And then Kickstarter comes back to me and they said, oh, you're approved. We're sorry. And it was like, well, they approved a project that was already on Indiegogo at this point. So I just took that approval and rolled it into a new folio. So now I'm looking to balance between the two. Black Labels and that kind of stuff, which is the more adult content, is on the Indiegogo, and my standard folios, my hardcovers, are still on Kickstarter. And that's worked out really well because I don't have any of the twitchiness of Kickstarter where they're like, you've done 3 of these in a row and they're not out. Because typically what happens with me is stuff gets bunched up and then I'll put 3 out at once. Like they all have to do it at the same time. I've double packed stuff sometimes, and then I catch up and then I go back, and it just depends on what my writing schedule is or what time of the year it is and how much time I have to get them. But obviously I've fulfilled everything that I've ever done, but it's just that, it's weird to them. They don't understand my business like I understand my business. So,
but see, that's the first time I've ever had that come up in a conversation. I haven't spoken to. I've been speaking recently with a lot of people who are putting out their first Kickstarter or one of their first because it's in Zine Quest over on there. But the fact that they were never concerned if you were running not just consecutive, concurrent Kickstarters. It could be Kickstarter A is still in its funding period. 2 weeks later, you launch another one. They didn't care because it was money coming in. Now, are they actually reading your updates to see whether or not you shipped?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, it caught me completely off guard. And somebody somewhere or some algorithm or something has been triggered through the change in policies. Because again, like I said, I could hit and it was just gone. Like I didn't have to wait an approval process because I'd done so many, and they had me like I've been on Kickstarter. They've contacted me and had me on programs with them where I tell them, I give them feedback because I'm a super creator. I don't know, and then all of a sudden it's just like something changes in policy and it changes, but nobody tells you. So anyway, I don't know why it happened, but yeah, something's being checked on that. I don't know if it was. I don't think it would just be me, but.
I mean, that's the whole thing with Kickstarter is, and I've watched this as a consumer or a backer, is that they have policies, but they are and their policies are policies until they're no longer policies. Like, oh well, we don't do any kind of fundraising or charity events. Unless it's for N-World to get themselves new servers, in which case and listen, N-World is certainly a hub for the gaming community, and I wouldn't have batted an eye if they were up on GoFundMe or something like that looking for it. But for Kickstarter say this can never happen, but oh no, it's and we're gonna let it happen. Or they had one Kickstarter campaign that was being I forgot, I forget the guy's name. Was it Luke Crane? He works for Kickstarter. He has his own projects, and he had one where if he didn't like the feedback people were giving them in the comments section, he was canceling their pledges. And it's just like, again, as a consumer / backer, I was like, that to me is crossing the line.
That's crossing a little bit of line, and you're going to take some punishment. I mean, we're publishers and we put stuff out, and not everything is going to be right. We're small. I work with four people, work for me, with me to get this stuff out. And I think we do a pretty good job, but we're not going to catch everything. And, we just try to do what we can to make sure that, people are happy with the product. And, I've just done this, I just shipped the curse, and, you're going to get UPS or US Post Office stuff messed up, and you give them a new copy. We do what we can,
right.
But still, you're going to get some comments, and I don't think I've ever had really any heinous comments on my stuff. But that's part of the trade. But hopefully, you can do a good enough job that those don't add up, and people are happy with your stuff. I see Mark down here put my Folio one. He relaunched. There's the relaunch, delivered January 2015. So, yeah, that's when that was. So
you've got 6 years underneath your belt.
Well, that's for the Folio. I was in 2012. Right. I was doing, so I've actually done this almost a decade. Yeah.
But the Folio is something that's where you seem to hit a rhythm.
That's my niche. That's my niche. That's what I work with. Yeah. Yeah.
So now, on the inside, because these are smaller projects, these have detachable covers.
Yep. Yeah.
See, now again, you're hitting that old school nostalgia of detachable covers, and that's kind of what sucked me in the first place with you.
Right.
Damn you, Scott.
I know. Well, that's one of those things. I remember so vividly sitting in a math class. I think I was pre-algebra in I was 8th grade, let's say, and I looked underneath. You're in desks, right? And people have the cage underneath the desk, right, where you can put book. And somebody had Slave Lords, the one with the creature coming out. I don't know which one it is, but anyway, the guy's leading the creatures forward, and I could see it underneath that seat, and I was just dying to know what it was. And eventually, I think I went to an art class, and the guy was in there, and he was like, "Sure, you can see it." And I picked it up, and the inside fell out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I broke your book." I didn't understand, and I was so incensed that this was not stapled to the cover. And eventually, I got it. That you use it as a screen, you need to see those maps. So I've obviously, as an old school gamer, I fell in love with it. And first thing I did when I looked at the Folio was I got to have an old school artist do the cover. I have to do black and white interiors because I love black and white artwork that nobody does anymore because color is so inexpensive, especially if you're getting it in the Eastern Bloc or Southeast Asia, because those guys don't have the overhead that people here. So that was one of the promises I made with my Folio was I want my stuff to be made in the United States of America, printed in the United States of America, and done by artists who I know, which are typically from the United States, who I know have families and overheads and mortgages and everything else. If I can give that money back to them and I get my stuff printed in Wisconsin, that I can make a little bit of an assistance to, because I heard so many stories from these artists that were my friends that had suffered. So many of them, some of them had committed suicide. Some of them had lost everything, their wives, their children, because they couldn't make money or they couldn't make ends meet. And it was just such a horrible thing. And I think a lot of the creative types anyway were a little bit out there. So there might be, right. So I think that there might be just a depression, or you go on these curves and you can just go so low. So when I did that and I said, I want to do that with black and white interior artwork, that's physical artwork, because so much has gone digital at the time. And I don't have a problem with digital. It's just I wanted some physical art. And then I wanted to have the cover come off because I hadn't seen that. Nobody did. Even when I was so taken with DCC when they did their throwbacks. But first one I grabbed, I was like, yes, let me get this. And I was like, wait, I can't take the cover off. And so I was like, can I do that? And I called my agent who works with me through publishing, and she was like, yeah, we can do that. So I got a company that could do it, and then I had to have everything shrinked, which is an added expense, but you have to have the cover stay on. And I've been very thrilled with it, and I was able to I had a lot of really good things happen when I was with Gygax, the designer who did all that interior design work, Andrew Rogers, who I absolutely love. He said, I was doing the first folio, and he was like, hey, are you going to do maps with it? I was like, yeah, I'm not a very good mapper. It's not my forte, but Mark Tim, who was he was my first DM, 1983. He helped me design the original Rosloff keep. And so he had done those dungeons, and we had played them for years and play tested through that. So I had the base of those, and he was like, hey, I'm an artist too. I'm not just a designer. Do you want me to do them in 3D? And I was like, yeah. Okay. And so he did this insane dungeon in 3D, and he just splashed it across that interior cover. And it was so lucky that I worked with him, and I got to know him through Gygax. But anyway, he's done all of my 3D maps until just this latest folio. Travis Hanson is doing them. He's fantastic as well.
Travis is amazing. Yeah,
he's amazing. So he did my interior maps for this new dungeon that's in Folio 26, the Virgin Mine, and he did all 6 of them. And I had this big idea to put them all together, and they make this huge mega dungeon. It's really cool. But because he had done those dungeons, I was like, do you think you could do them in 3D? Because Andrew was working at the time for Folio, or for Black Label number 4's 3D map, and it takes him a long time to do them because he's so detailed. It's fantastic. And so they both are. So Travis said, yeah, I can do it. So he's given it a shot in that one. I think it looks great. And then we've got Andrew still doing the 3Ds. But anyway, so that's why I've got all the removable covers. Yeah, it's a good throwback.
It scratches that little point of nostalgia right in the back of the shoulder blade, and it's like, oh god. So you've gotten the physical feel of classic product.
I try.
You've gotten the artwork of classic artists.
Yeah.
What part haven't you gotten?
I don't know. I mean, I have to ask myself, am I a good enough storyteller to match some of the things that I saw in the early editions, especially Gygax, or somebody like Douglas Niles, who I absolutely love. And it's really this weird thing because, as a writer and a novelist, and I do these, I tend to like to put a lot of stuff into it, be very verbose, and try to build these things. And one of the things that I've learned in doing these is sometimes you have to pull back. Like some of the great things that make those early modules so good, and you can go back again and again and again to, let's say, Keep on the Borderlands, or Horror on the Hill, my favorite module, or Palace of the Silver Princess. Some of these modules, they're great dungeon crawls, but they don't overwhelm you with just stuff, right? You don't have a lot of explanation in there. You don't have a lot of stuff. And one of the things I've had to do is try to mitigate my desire to just put wrinkles and traps and bend the storylines together through 6 volumes and that stuff, and try to make it more along the lines of an easier play for the DM. Because Shane, at Pinnacle, who does Savage Rules, and he told me one time I saw him at Gen Con. I said, I just love your stuff so much, your Savage Worlds. And he said, well, it's because I'm a lazy DM. That's probably why you like it. And I was like, yes, see, you get it. Because sometimes DMs we're so overwhelmed. We've got our life. We got to do other things. And then to get ready, like you said, your friend who was like, I can't DM right now. I'm burnt out. So you want to give them a chance to not have to know everything backwards, forwards, and sideways run this adventure. So that's one of the things that I constantly struggle with. My desire to put more in, but trying to find the happy medium.
And there is a little happy medium between the two, because I think as a GM, at least as a GM like me, if you give me too much information, it is like a sensory overload, because but then if you give too little, then it's like, oh, what am I missing? What? There's something that's not getting me from point A to point B.
Right.
And I think you should go just a little bit beyond not enough to just enough, because as a GM, you're often taking, I don't know, the most recent issue or release of the Folio and putting it into your campaign. And a lot of times you're taking your square peg into a round hole, and you got to file those edges off and meld it. And the more you got to move around, sometimes the harder it becomes.
Absolutely.
But for the most part, though, I mean, the Folio stuff has been spot on.
Well, thank you. And one of the things that I'll also talk about when I'm talking about the Folio is in the compressing these. If you ever see my hardcovers, I had this recurring nightmare. And I don't know if it would classify it as a nightmare, but I had it for 20 years, that I was at a used bookstore and I would find an unknown orange spine hardcover that somehow I had missed, right? And I had to get it. And I would always try to get it and buy it and get out of the store, and I never could, because then I'd find a second one that I'd never know. It was some of this thing. It was like a rat maze in my head. And I always
too.
Right. And so I always wanted to have that. My whole life, I wanted to have another orange spine. So when I did my first Roslov Keep hardcover and I got that orange spine, it was so hard to match that orange. I had to send it back a couple of times, but I wanted it to be an Easley, because Easley did every one of those orange spines. And so Jeff did my first 4 of those, I think. And then finally I was like, would it be possible to get the 4 horsemen, to get Easley, to get Elmore, to get Caldwell, and to get Parkinson on an orange spine hardcover? But Parkinson, of course, passed away. I can't believe it's like 2005 now. I mean, I can't believe it's been 16 years. But nevertheless, because he lived in San Diego, which is where I live, I had gotten to know his son and his wife and his widow. And so I asked them, I said, do you think that it's a possibility for me to put one of these on the cover? And they gave me permission to put one of his before published. So I got that for the White Ship campaign. So, and then the newest one, Curse of Roslov Keep, is my first Caldwell. So I've got all 4. So now so I think that dream should just go away now. I've got, and they're AD&D orange spine hardcovers. There's 7 of them. And I've got all 4 of the artists on there. So I'm very happy with that. So
that is spot on. Now, question that has occurred to me, maybe some of the listeners, the black label come from? It's a little bit of a diversion from your regular Folio work.
It is
small diversion.
Small diversion. I wanted Folio to be something that anybody could play, and you could have your kids play. Because I played with my son in D&D in a campaign when he was 9. I started him at 9, and by like 10 he was done with D&D, which was fine. But I know so many people have their kids or their grandkids, and they like to play those things. I wanted to give them something that they could play that had fun art and had stuff like that in it, and anybody could play it. So that's why I did the Folio. And then after years of doing it, and I was working with Daniel Horn at the time, who did some fantastic covers of Dragon magazine as well. And he had this great Red Sonja, and I thought, wow, she's really great, but she's just too much to put on a Folio cover.
Right.
So, and I thought, what if I did something that was more inspired in the early days of AD&D, when you saw Jeff D or something in the old Deities and Demigods with his shirtless, Egyptian goddesses, or you saw Willingham, like the Palace of the Silver Princess. You kind of got side boob there for the centaur that's showing.
You forget Mr. Kubus. Obviously, no, you're not, because that comes right to the latest release. But
Right.
I mean, I look back at my old DMG and it's like, why does no, it's an old Monster Manual. I go, why does my old Monster Manual open up to that page?
It's
Never,
right.
I don't think I ever really used it in game, but the DMG would always open up to the combat charts, my player's handbook, Paladin in Hell, but my Monster Manual would always be the succubus, and I was like,
There she is.
as an adult, I was like, well, I know why, but I don't want to admit why. But yes,
Right. So anyway, and that was like my puberty, right? I mean, that was introduced. I mean, those were things that were huge to me, and I really loved them. And I thought, and I'd done with Brahm, I'd worked on this novel back in like 2013 called The Burning City, and I'd always been working on a second edition of it, expanding it because it was a light novel. And at the time, like last year, after I started doing the black labels, which I wanted to make more of a swords and sorcery 1980s light R version stuff, like one of my favorite movies is Deathstalker, or it's actually Deathstalker 2. If you're just looking at like stupid B 1980s movies, like Beastmaster and stuff like that. But anyway, I love Deathstalker, and they just do stupid stuff, and the women kind of run around without shirts most of the time. And it was just one of those things that you saw in the 80s, and they might have been a little rapey for what's out today. But anyway, they're that era, right? And they would have PC warnings on them right now if you saw them on Netflix or something. But anyway, I looked at that and I said, I want to do something more along the line of that for the people that play the AD&D stuff that know what I'm talking about and can go back to that era. Comedy yet sexy. So I was able to develop those. I used two of my favorite characters ever, which are in Palace of the Silver Princess. They were done by Rosloff. Candela and Duchess, the two thieves that you see turning around and looking at the king. They're in that module. I absolutely loved them. I fell in love with them. I used them in my own campaigns, and I thought I'm going to do these, and they're going to be the main protagonists in this. They're going to run around and do silly stuff together, which it looks like they're doing in Palace of the Silver Princess. Is they're looting that keep. So I was able to use them. I got to use that cover, and I saw some success with it. And then I was able to redo this novel as well. And I used the 13th Warlock, who does some really off the wall stuff. So I was able to put that out as well. The Burning City, which is what this new Kickstarter is, this next trilogy for the Black Label, and it's definitely racy. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that I decided to do with that. Not for your kids' table, but for the old guys like us who. Yeah, we think that's funny, and we like to see silly stuff like that. So.
All right. Well, the old, the cheesecake nostalgia that covers.
Right, absolutely.
When you used to go to B. Dalton's or Walden Books, and when you're looking at the books, what did you generally have? You had beefy men killing stuff, or well-endowed, clad women killing
the Conan,
stuff.
Your Vallejo stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's,
yes. That's what we had back then. That's what. So, listen. Even you look at classic Larry Elmore books, the Dragonland stuff. You're still selling. You're still selling sex with those books. Right. You might not have not as blatant as others, but Larry has a certain flair with what he does.
He does. One of my favorite stories, I know it's been shared elsewhere, not here, but I know it's been shared, which Larry talked about. Or actually, I was out to dinner with Clyde and Jeff, and Clyde told the story of Margaret Weiss coming in, and Clyde had been given the duty of doing the first Gold Moon for Dragonlance, and so he did her. And she had on these like little briefs, so her legs were showing because Clyde loves thighs. Like that's what he does. So she's got these naked thighs, and she saw the picture, and she went in to I believe she went into Larry and was crying and was like, I can't have Gold Moon like this. And he said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So he went in and actually did Dragons of Autumn Twilight, that incredible cover. And she's got pants on, buckskins
Right.
that are sewn, so you don't see anything. But because he took that from Clyde just at her behest, because she was so beside herself the way that Clyde had done her, which is funny. But anyway, that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's Elmore. But yeah, Elmore's of course done a lot of crazy stuff too. But still, he did that for her. But,
yeah, no, and I've spoken briefly with Larry. He'll probably never even remember he spoke with me, but he's always gracious and just that southern Kentucky drawl.
yeah, he's so awesome. Yeah.
It's like, oh man, this guy should be doing commercials with that voice. Just give me a whiskey commercial. I don't drink whiskey, but I'll buy it if Larry's selling it.
Okay.
God. So, what's the next thing on your project list, man? And I know you've got plenty. And I got actually, before you tell me what's your next thing on your project list, how you've written a lot. Okay, sure. I know as DMs we all tend to write a lot, yeah. But how do you keep yourself inspired? How do you keep yourself producing it?
It's tough because they're back and forth. George R. R. Martin once said he was a gamer and he said, I cannot write when I game, or at least when he DMs, right? Because it takes his creative spirit to DM away from his writing. I don't necessarily find that. It can happen sometimes if I DM too much. But I go in these waves where I will just be super, super creative, and I'll be able to get a lot done over a period of time, a short period of time. And then after that, I go into a foxhole for 2 weeks and just can't write. So it's just one of those things. I don't know how I keep it up or how I continue to do it, but I'm just happy that I still find things. And I read a lot, and when you read, I think it always keeps stuff going. It just gives you little things. And one thing I do when I'm in a writing zone, typically I go out at night. I live in Southern California, so I can go out at night. It's still fairly nice outside, and I can stay away from the sun. I'll put on headphones and I listen to space music, which is so it's not anything that I have to sing to. And then I'll take a half an hour walk every night. And while I'm on that walk, I go through scenarios. Okay, if so-and-so happens, what do I need to do with that? And then once I've got that down, I'll come in and I'll take those notes, and then I'll know where I'm going the next day for a project, or how the connective tissue might happen between my projects. Because all my folios link to each other, at least in a trilogy or sometimes in a 6-part series. So I need to know that kind of stuff.
Oh, definitely. That's interesting. And I understand that need of, oh God, not almost like white noise to allow your mind to escape. I mean, right. Sometimes when I get into those creative moods, it's like I'm one of those people that takes a 3-minute shower and I'm in and out. But my wife will know that I must be in a creative mood when I'm in there for half an hour. It's like, are you still? I'm like, oh yeah, because you zone out. The shower allows you to forget what's going on around the world, forget whatever real world issues you might have, and you're like, oh man, okay, if I did this, this, and this, and we write that would be interesting, and you go with it. So I can understand that completely. Now, that being said, then what is your next project? What's the next thing we're going to be looking at?
Well, I've basically got my stuff laid out for the foreseeable future, which is I just funded in December the first issue of my next 6-parter in the base folio. That's Folio 26, which is the Virgin Mine. And that's a 6-part series, so I already have the maps done for that. And I just got the edits done for that today. They just came back to me, so it's in final layout. So it's going to be out way early, because I think I promised it in June. I think it should be out. It might be out this month if I get it out fast enough. So then I'll go into the next one, which is I think it's Lair of the Serpents, which is the next part of that series. And it's a mega dungeon, so you're going to go part. There's a 6-part series, but if you get all 6 of them done, it opens up the center triangle, which has another dungeon in it. So it'll actually be 7 parts. So it's a lot of fun, and it's got a new wrinkle to it because one of the things I found out in writing modules, when you go up in level, you go, you go what, goblin, then you go orc, then you go gnoll, then you go ogre, then you know giant. You have to go up, right? In the power scheme. And when you go up in that power scheme, it's taxing not only to the DM who's playing it, but me writing it, because you don't know at that point. I know what a first level character is basically going to do, but a 7th level character, I don't know what magic items they have. I don't know what hit points they have, armor classes, spells. I don't know those things. So it makes it harder to lay out exactly what I want to do at that level. So what I've done with these is it's basically like an inhibitor dungeon, which you're getting experience and you're able to go up in level, but the levels don't translate normally inside the dungeon. So I can populate that dungeon with all low level encounters that I like. Be those kobolds or goblins or orcs or anything like that would be considered low level when you're going from dungeon to dungeon. And although when the characters come out of the dungeon, they might be 6th level, when they go back in, they're inhibited. So in that standpoint, they still get to fight these things that I think you bypass very quickly when you're going up in D&D, especially in 5e, that you can therefore take more time in. And there's all kinds of wrinkles that explain it and give you special powers and stuff inside of it that's in the first issue. And then and you get things you can put on your armor to give you special powers. Anyway, it's kind of neat. So that's what that dungeon is. And then the other project that I'm working on simultaneously is the next Folio Black Label, which is number 4, which I'm about 75% done with right now. Like I said, we're working on the 3D maps of it. And then it's a 3-part series too. So I've got those 3 that I've got to lay out getting to the Burning City itself. So that'll take me easily through the next year and a half, I would think. And then once those things come together, then I usually just combine them into another hardcover and put the hardcover out.
Oh, so there you go.
So,
so Mr. Rook he wants to know, how complete do you have a project before you go live on crowdfunding?
On Kickstarter or Indiegogo? That's a really great question. I think it depends. I'll preface this with, I think it depends on what you're doing, because I'm going to be different than you because I've done 70 of them. So I know verbatim typically what it's going to take, unless COVID throws in a wrench with printing or something bizarre happens, or one of my contractors gets in some big projects elsewhere and that delays them. But typically I know exactly what time it's going to take to do that. So when I do something, I'd like to have the base map done. When I work with 3D, so I need to have, with that base map, I need to typically have a room description at the very least of every room inside the dungeon, so I can send it to my 3D mapper, who's going to take a month to do it, right? And I can write encounters and traps and anything else that's in there while they're doing that map, as long as I've got that base done. So I don't know if there's a percentage. I'll always have the cover done, because that's going to go up on the banners and stuff for the project. Typically the artwork, I know that my contracting artists, I always check with them and know what their schedule is, so I can get in, how many pieces I need and what their timetable is. But I would give that, I don't have a lot of that art done, interior art done, before I run it, because it's going to be basically a month to run the project. I know in that time, that's usually what your delay is on an artist, or at least the artists that I work with. So that's what I'm doing. But I've done so many of these, I understand what my printing is going to be. I understand all those things. So that allows me to get less done before I run it than more. I would suggest, if you're doing this or you're doing it new, get it done. Just take money out of your pocket if you have to, get it done, and then run it, especially if you're new to it. Because the more you have done, the less problems you can have. At the end, the last thing you want is a problem project as your first or second project, because you're going to kiss backers goodbye. Because they don't want to wait. They don't want to have the problems and have you come up with your on your updates and say, oh, I got another problem. People have enough problems in their life, right? They don't need your problems. They've got their own problems. So that's one of the things that I would also say to you as well. Be positive, make sure you have your stuff done when you can. I know that there might be roadblocks, and everybody understands that, but don't have too many of them when you initially start it. So get as much done as you can. That would be my suggestion, Steve.
Well, that's a good point because your first project basically is going to set your reputation. At least
Yeah.
if it's a bad reputation, it's going to set it. Because bad reps are hard to shake. A good rep is easy, but a bad rep is hard to shake. So if you are prepared with your first project, like you said, there's less hiccups, less potential problems, less issues. Your chance of fulfilling on time and listen, I'm infamous for calling out late Kickstarter. And I generally
I don't want
say,
to get on your list. I've never
yeah,
been on it. Yeah.
yeah, but even I generally say, well, with a smaller
No problem, right?
Kickstarter, if it's within 3 months, it's fashionably late. It's like
Right. That happens. Yeah.
I'm supposed to be at the for Christmas dinner. I'm supposed to be over there at 3. I get there at 3:20, 3:25. You're fashionably. You don't want to get there just on time because then people might be like, "Who the fuck's this asshole coming in at 3 o'clock?" You're not supposed to be here at the time we told you. So I'll give them that. In a larger Kickstarter, I might even give as much as 6 months. But I'm looking at Kickstarters at this point that are 9 years late.
Right. 9 years. I mean, it's crazy. And yeah, I feel bad for it. And I've seen projects, TSR, the new TSR that did Gygax. They're a prime example of ruining their reputation on a Kickstarter. And that's one that they fulfilled, I think. That was the top secret New World Order. Yep. Which was a misery. I wasn't a part of it, but it was a misery according to the comments I've read on that Kickstarter in fulfillments or bad product or so forth and so. So remember that you can really take a hit. When I was first doing these Kickstarters for the Folio, I'll get your question as well, Rook, on the follow-up, but let me tell this. I was doing Kickstarters once a month, and I was fulfilling in a month. I was getting one of these things out a month, and I finished a Kickstarter, and it was already at the printer, and it was supposed to be fulfilled in 4 months, and a week later, somebody commented, "When am I going to get this? You're already late." And I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? This is crazy."
The money hasn't even cleared from Kickstarter yet.
Right. If I don't even have the money. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. It hadn't even been 2 weeks. I don't even have the money yet. And you want to know why your product isn't to you. So you'll get crazy stuff like that. But anyway, the follow-up question was, what's your average artist turnaround time? This is excellent. This is an excellent question if you're going to do this, because artists are contractors. And if you've ever used a contractor on anything, understand that the way they keep themselves in business is to take as much work as they can, do a little bit of work on it, and then eke it out for a long time. Like if you want your kitchen redone, they come in, tear your kitchen apart, and then you don't see them for another 6 months. But you can't do anything because you can't fire them because they've already torn your kitchen apart. So one of the things you look at with these artists is they might give you a timetable. Mine are typically going to be 2 weeks to a month is what I do for my black and whites for most of my stuff. But I've got a very good and long-standing working relationship with these artists. If you get with an artist that you've never worked before, somebody you find, you thought, oh, his stuff is really good, you could go to them and say, hey, so-and-so, I need this, now, and they'll say, got it. Sure, no problem. I can put that in my queue. And then all of a sudden you give them an advance or you do something like that just to secure the project. And then they take weeks and weeks and you're contacting. They're like, I'm going to get to it. I had something else come in, because if Watsy calls them, guess who's getting the first queue? Watsy. Right. If Del Rey calls them, Del Rey's getting it. So you've got to understand that you're very small potatoes to them. And they could delay you. I'm working with an artist right now that I absolutely love. And I knew by signing him that I was taking a big time risk, right? But I built a massive time risk on it. And I don't even know if I'll hit that. But it's all right because I knew what I was getting into when I did it. And I knew what I wanted and he was what I wanted. And I was willing to take that chance. First time I ever worked with him. But I love everything that he's done for me so far. I saw 13th Warlock there, Hal. Yep. He works with me. Talk about fast. This dude is fast. So if you ever want anything done by Warlock, he's going to get it done fast. And he's great. So anyway, he's one of them that I work with, and he's worked with me on the new Black Label, and he worked with me on the Burning City, which he did all the interior illustrations for. And there are like 32 of them or something. It's crazy. That was a nuts project, and it was a passion project of mine. I lost money on it, but I just wanted to do it. But anyway, yeah, Hal's great. 13th Warlock. If you look up some of his stuff, it's great. It's going to be risque, to say the least, but he's great. Yeah.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's throwback, isn't it?
Right. He'll do some serious swords and sorcery stuff on there. Yeah. So anyway, he's great.
But as a quote, very small publisher myself, my suggestion is, if you're looking at the interior art, stock art's always a great way to go. But for a cover, you usually need. I got lucky when I knew the artist, and he's like, "Oh, dude, I got a piece that was rejected that because I saw the black and white version of it." He's like, "Oh, I got a full color version of it I can give you because I have the black and white of stock art, but I knew the artist." Because you don't want your cover to be something that's going to be used somewhere else. Okay, you want your cover to be unique. And I've seen a few projects in the OSR that were self-published where I said, you know what, that goddamn fucking rat. I've seen that damn rat on at least 3 different projects on 3 different covers, let alone internally, because I buy more shit than I ever should. But I also look at all the new releases, and when you recognize artwork, and sure, maybe they tweaked it and changed the color palette around, but when you recognize artwork on more than one product, especially the cover, that's a disincentive to buy your product. I hate to put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, but I have one caveat.
Go ahead.
The best project I've ever had was Curse of Razloff Keep, right, which I just did in August. $50,000 for that thing, and I used Clyde Caldwell, and I did a second rights, and that book I think was put out in 2000. Like, he used that cover in 2000 on another gaming product.
Oh, 2000. We're talking.
It's 20 years, but still, it's a reuse on a gaming product, and it was fantastic. So I don't know. Yeah, I feel.
But not only that, your covers or themselves are a work of art with everything you do, with all the text.
Right. Yeah,
when the one that sticks out to me is this goddamn rat, and again, I've seen it on at least 2 covers and like probably a half dozen times internally. If you like rats, you find them disturbing, it's a great piece of art. I understand why it was used more than once. However, these are products that came out within the last year or 2.
Yeah, that's tough.
And also, you knew going into it this piece had already been used.
I did.
If you're getting stock art, assume it's already been used, because people buy the rights for that stuff. They're inexpensive enough. I have a stock art collection. I probably spent $1,000 on stock art over the years for when I would start putting stuff out, and I slowly have been, just so I knew that I'd have it ready or need it for inspiration or need it for blog posts. But also trying to be aware of what is being used. Nothing says you can't use another piece of stock art that somebody else has used. But if you've seen it on the cover, try not to put it on the cover. Especially
if it's new stuff. I mean, that'll definitely confuse people very quickly, for sure. But you can also find, you've got to understand too, that there are artists out there that you might think, I could never afford so-and-so. Whoever you think it is. And you're right. You probably can't if you want a brand new original piece. But they have stuff that they might have been doing for 25 years that might have been used on a book cover for like a fiction book or something or whatever, that's lying around in their archive that would work perfectly for your product and way oversell your product for a very minuscule price comparatively. If you're going for second rights, on stuff, which I've used in the past, second rights for stuff on artists that I love and I have relationships with, but I know I can't afford a brand new piece from them. Right. Although the new piece actually for the Folio is John Sleznick, and that's a brand new piece. So that is I like that one. And somebody commented on it very early in the thing that they recognized it from something like the Silver Succubus or something.
Yeah. I think that was I think before we even went live,
Right.
was a
That's a
comment
brand
on it.
new piece by John, and he's great. He's out in LA. I absolutely love him. But anyway, so sometimes you can get to do that. But I would suggest going in if you're looking for a good cover. You can try to contact these people. But again, they don't trust everybody too. So I've got a great story if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
I was starting out. It was probably '07. I was brand new into the, trying to break into the industry. I was blogging part-time for Black 8 magazine. And I wanted to do this series called Art Evolution, where I took a single character, Lissa, who always wore white. She had dark hair, had to wear white, and it was trimmed in gold. That's the only description I had. And then I went out and tried to get famous artists in the fantasy genre to give me their vision of Lissa. And then I would post it with a write-up about the artist, right? And so I went in and did it. And I got Elmore and, easily. And I ended up getting just 20 fantastic artists, Brahm and all these people. They were great. But the first person I asked was Errol Otis. And I love Errol. I think his stuff is great. And Errol's one of those, he's like an acquired taste, right? I think when I saw him when I was young, I was like, this stuff, I don't know. It's not Willingham. Right. It's not D, right? I was looking for comic book stuff. This stuff's weird. And then the older I got, it's like, this stuff is genius. I just love this stuff. It's so weird. It's so out there. And it's so old school. And so I went right out and I got his email. He was working at in television, I think, and I ended up getting his email somehow, and I emailed him, and I was like, hey, I'm doing this project for Black 8 magazine. It would be possible, for you to do this. And he emailed me back, and he was like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where have you been published? Da, 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 da. And I said, well, I have not been published. This is my first thing I'm getting ready to do. And he was like, no, won't do it. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah, I won't do it. And I was like, okay. And then I ended up getting a couple other artists. And I was like, look, I got a couple artists to do this. Take it on? Right. No, I don't want anything to do with it. I was like, dang, okay. And then I was like, what? And I had just moved. And then in 2009, I moved to California, and I was like, hey, hey, I emailed him. I was like, hey, are you sure you don't want to do this? Now I've got 20 artists. You could cap it off. You could be the last one to do it. And he was like, I was like, I even thought about coming up, and showing you all in person, because I know you're up in, San Francisco or whatever. And he was like, don't contact me again. And I was like, okay, so. I was like, so basically Errol Otis has a restraining order against. I guess he thinks I'm going to drive up to wherever he lives, show up at his house demanding him do artwork for me. But it's that funny thing. I've worked with nothing but old school artists for almost a decade now. And over a decade, if you include that stuff. And I've never gotten to work with Errol Otis. And I know that he seems like a great guy. He does stuff for DCC, does stuff for a lot of people. And it's like, he hates me. It's like, I don't know. I love Errol Otis, but I've never gotten to work with him. So if you're new and you don't have a name and they want your website and they want what you published and who you've worked for, and you don't have any of those things, maybe you can scare them off. That's my story for you. I don't know. Anyway, that's my Errol Otis story. So,
well, you know what? And this is something that I've mentioned to some of the zine creators over in the Facebook community for RPG zines. Part of breaking into this hobby as a creator is getting yourself seen, getting yourself noticed, and building a rep. But a lot of times you don't have the social media background to do so. I mean, you have put in so much of your own time, and you've built up that rep. You've been in this business now for
13 years, 13, 14 years.
13, 14 years. So you've built up that rep. But somebody coming in doesn't have that rep. There are ways to get around it. I've mentioned it to others. If you want, when I was coming into, quote, even blogging, you got known as a blogger by adding to other people's blogs. You would comment on them, or you would participate in forums, and you didn't say, look at me. You actually did something productive that got yourself looked at. My suggestion to you is to join communities, whether from Facebook, MeWe, or whatever. It's easier to get a name for yourself adding to a community than it is to just be, I need more friends on Facebook, or I need more people to like me on MeWe. It's easier to get known for who you are and what you can do in a community, and communities tend to be more open to helping, offering advice, all that stuff. It really is a great way to get your feet in without, don't pay for somebody's program online to how to market yourself on Facebook. I'm telling you right now, the easiest way is if you want to do a zine, join the RPG Zine community on Facebook. There's almost 2,000 people in that group right now. It's grown at leaps and bounds, but they're all helping each other. The conversations are great. And you go in there and you might make those connections. It's harder to make a connection outside of a community than it is within a community. And I think that's a shortcut, or at least a help.
Right. And I think if you heard that story, Aerolotus in that particular sense didn't work, right? But it doesn't mean that every situation falls in like that. I had gotten involved with getting a commission at the time from Jeff Laubenstein, who is one of my best friends now, all these years later. And he worked extensively for FASA back in '90. He did BattleTech. He's the first Shadowrun book is almost all his, other than the cover by Elmore. And he was the generator of Earth Dawn. So he'd done so many great things. And after that happened with Errol, I sent him an email. I sent Jeff an email, Laubenstein, and I said, this happened. And he said, look, not everybody is going to be that. I'll gladly do this for you. Just keep asking. So I did. And here I am 13 years later, and I've got all these contacts with all these great people who've been so fantastic to me in the industry. And I could not have done what I did without Jeff Easley, without all of these great artists that gave me the time and listened to what I had to say and were willing to work with me. And I can't thank them enough. I mean, all of them. You see all the covers that I've done on the Folio, another 26 of them, and it's just crazy that I get to work with these people and how great they all are. And like I said, Aerolotus might be an outlier for me, but for somebody at Dungeon Crawl, he could be great. I'd love to know, but anyway, that doesn't happen all the time. But you have to put in that time. I worked for free. When I started doing, guest spots on, blogs and stuff like that, and putting in articles on a weekly basis, and I'm not saying give your stuff away for free, but, sometimes you got to pay your dues, and then eventually you get to a great place, where you can put out stuff you want, and you have great backers and great people that come in and are willing to support you, giving you their hard-earned money to hopefully help entertain them and add to their shelves and stuff like that. So,
right. Well, it's like you just said. But again, you've been doing this for years. It doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't. No.
The only thing that happens overnight is that 1 in 650 million chance to win Powerball. That for some people happens overnight. But again, with Tank Horse Tavern, the blog, it was years before it became an actual. You're not making money off it, but a viable source and a viable interest within a hobby. Didn't happen overnight. You got to put that time in. And
I think an interest, and a lot of it, I'm not saying that everything has to do with timing, but it does help you sometimes. It does. And you never know when that wave's going to come, and you just might happen to catch it. But there'll be another. Whatever that wave is, you might be able to catch it. But I think you got to break when Grognardia fell apart. I can tell you.
I can tell you from watching my traffic. My first break was Death Force Doom, doing a review on that, and that getting picked up, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, there's hits on my blog that aren't from me. Oh, what the hell is that?
It's funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, the Pathfinder Beginner Box came out, and I did a review on that. And I'm not a Pathfinder fan. I still think the Pathfinder Beginner Box is probably one of the top 5 role-playing products of the decade. It was really excellent. And that got picked up by Paizo that I bought. And all of a sudden, huge amount of traffic. And I was like, holy crap. Because I'll be honest with you, when Greg Nardi is, and by the way, Greg Nardi is back. James is back.
Oh, I didn't
He's
know
back
that.
oh yeah, James is back and posting. When Greg Nardi went silent, my blog traffic, according to Alexa, was right around the same as James.
Really?
We were
Really?
we were just driving. We were driving different conversations. James, because James was, going to old issues of Dragon magazine or whatever, and I was doing a lot more news.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot more new releases. So we were hitting much of the same parts of the community, but we were also hitting different parts of the community and offering different things. But my initial blog, my first 6 months of blogging, I'll be honest with you, beyond the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, was pretty shitty. Because again, you have to find a focus. And once I found my focus, which was old school gaming, I've had people go, if you wrote about 5e more often, you get a lot more. You get a lot more traffic. Yeah, I maybe, but if I did that, talk about 5e a lot more often, I wouldn't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Number one, I wouldn't be authentic. But I wouldn't have that same passion. You have passion for old school gaming, and that comes out in your adventures. And translating it to 5e is a no brainer. Okay,
that's the money. Yeah, for sure.
But if I'm going to be looking at new releases or products or Indiegogos or, for the most part, 5e stuff, unless it's something that's 5e stuff that is more system neutral. It's like, well, this is great. It's an adventure, but most adventures you can convert to any system that you want without much work. But if it's a source book, you're like, oh, it's 5e. It's all full of skills and feats and shit. Right. If I strip all that out, well, what are you left with? Like 4 pages from a 32-page book? I mean, right. So there's a difference. But you have to know your audience. And again, you've been doing this for 13 years. I think I've been doing a blog for 12. Right. So you build up a community. You build up people that are interested in what you're doing because they know you've been consistent, whatever it is you're doing. Consistency is part of the package that you're giving out. When I started doing the podcast, I had people on the blog side emailing me and messaging me or commenting, what is it? Is the blog going away? No, the blog's not going away. It's just another way for me to talk. And I find that the live streams and the podcast are more free form, and I get a great chance to talk with you, Scott, and hang out with Bad Mike once a week, and Joe the Lawyer, Glenn Hallstrom. I've been talking to all these zine creators. I couldn't do that on the blog.
Right.
I've tried interviews that are written, and they suck.
I've done those. Yeah, I did those for Blackgate. Absolutely.
Yeah,
you try to make them interesting. That's why I had a formula that I used on them. It was pretty funny. Yeah.
They're not easy, and especially when you're like me, who again, we call this the hex crawl before we came into it, but it's a hex crawl. We didn't know we were going to get this part of the conversation. We're here because it's where the conversation took us. You can't do a blog post that way because
right.
It's
going to be the theme. It's got to go.
Yeah, it's going to be the ramblings of a madman. You might listen to the ramblings of a madman, but you probably wouldn't read them. So I think that's where that comes off. So
yeah. Well, one of the things you asked me what I was doing too in my off time, if this might interest you, I don't know if you know or not, but I do. I've been working for a year on Star Frontiers: Zebulon's Guide to Frontier Space, Volume 2.
Whoa!
So that's what I do in my off time.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Time out.
Okay.
So Star Frontiers is a game that when it first came out,
1981. Yeah.
1981. Okay. So yeah. So that would have made me. Oh my God! All right, like 13, 14. I bought it for my sister as a Christmas present because I wanted it. So I
nice, good move. I like that one.
Because she was like, "What the fuck is, oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, here, let me take that from you. Huh?
Yeah, she's like 4 years younger. It's like, well, I'll run it for you. And Star Frontiers, actually, I was like, it's not D&D. But years later, when I came back to it, I was like, this is actually a pretty cool system. And if nothing else, it's cool what they did with the system. Even if you don't like this, the system itself is, the setting, the trappings, the races, all the shiny bits are a lot of fun. So I was very happy when I found things like Star Frontiersman and other
Frontier Explorer. There's another one.
Yep. I was like, wow, people are still publishing stuff for this. Holy crap. So now you are working on something for the system. So now I'd like to hear how this happened.
Right. Well, I have loved Star Frontiers, since I saw an ad for it in 6th grade in one of the magazines that they handed out at the school or something. I don't know where I saw it. But I ended up, I got it. I didn't really have anybody to play with it. And then my DM, Mark, who helped me write Roslav Keep or create that dungeon, we ended up playing it in high school when Zebulon's Guide Volume 1 came out in 1985, right before they canceled it for good. Right. And so we played it, and I've had a fondness for it since that point. And I've wanted to be getting back to it. And once I got all the yellow spines done, or the orange spines done, that fulfilled that niche in my mind that was that completist thing where I had to have that done. And then I thought, my whole life I've wanted a Zebulon's Guide to Space Volume 2, because why would you put Volume 1 on it if there wasn't another volume? Right. They promised us something. TSR, you promised us something that you did not deliver. I'm one of those mad gamers. So I've always wanted a Volume 2, and I said to myself, okay, back in 2015, I talked to the guy, Bill, who was running Star Frontiersman, and we talked about getting the IP or having it released or getting it put in the OGL. And every year I would contact the same woman at Wizards of the Coast. And I would say, hey, it's Scott from Art of the Genre. Would you release the IP, or are you thinking about it? Thank you for asking. We're not looking to do so right now, but please contact me again. I do every year. Once a year, I would go back since 2015 and I'd ask that. Finally, 2 years ago, she stopped writing back. And I don't know if she moved on, because you don't stay in a job forever. So anyway, I never got it. But nevertheless, that was about the time, 2018, when Evil Hat came in and tried to snake. I say snake, sorry, Evil Hat. But they tried to take the name Star Frontiers, because it had lapsed, the copyright on it lapsed or whatever. And Wizards of the Coast came in and said, hell no, you're not taking that, and backed them off. But at that point, they took everything back, including they wouldn't let Star Frontiersman and Frontier Space get published for a few months or whatever. They took everything down off drive-through and said, you can't sell the old issues, even for free. We want it all gone. And now they've kind of loosened that up a little bit so they can put that stuff out again. So they've been cool about it. They were just mad at that point that somebody was trying to take their intellectual property that they didn't want taken, even though they've not done anything with it since the release of D20 Future, which had some of the races in it, bizarrely. But it wasn't a Star Frontiers supplement. It was just called D20 Future, and it just had some of that. That was the only thing that they've referenced to it since 1985. And I think that was before Hasbro even bought them. I think that was still pure Wizards of the Coast. But nevertheless, they haven't done anything with it. And I knew that it was never going to get released. They were not going to give up this IP. So I was like, I've got the contacts. I've got the time. As a passion project, I'm just going to make Zebulon's Guide, Frontier Space, Volume 2. So I talked to Nick Parkinson, Keith Parkinson's son, because there was a piece that he had done in the late 80s, early 90s that was very Star Frontiers-esque. I said, could I use that? He said, yeah, you can absolutely use it for the cover. So I got a cover for it. And then I got one of my artists that works on the Folio said, I'd love to do that with you, just as a passion project. I'll just do art with you. You write it and I'll do art with it. So that was Simon Adams, who's great. And so we've just been working on it, on and off for a year until I can put it together in a volume 2, and it's going to look just like the original one, just different. And it'll take, because the volume 1 was kind of rushed to press, and nothing ever was put out to back it up. It was right when TSR 85, it was right when it was transitioning out of Gygax, right when he got moved out of the company. Then they got rid of it and did Buck Rogers instead. And so it promised a lot, but it was kind of rushed. And it's just this one little tiny volume. And there's like, we'll tell you about power armor in the next set. No, there's no power. So that, it's the stuff. So it's all stuff that I wanted, that I thought could fulfill this promise. So that's what I do in my off time, just so I can produce this and make my own copy and put it on my shelf and say, I'm done, I'm good. Because I can't produce it because it's Wizards of the Coast property. But nevertheless, that's what I do in my off time gaming. Like, I don't do enough gaming, right? So anyway,
your passions do us a huge favor because we benefit from it.
Right. So Go ahead. So with that, I've talked to a lot of people, Steven, a lot of other people in the Star Frontiers community, and we're actually working on stuff to maybe try to create a Star Frontiers organized play, which typically would be online, but it would allow us an opportunity to show a viability in the IP for Wizards of the Coast. Like, I don't want Star Frontiers. I just want them to do something with it. Right? I'm not trying to. Right. Sure. Would I like to make money off Star Frontiers? Yes, but I don't want I want them to just do something with it because I think it's a great system. And if Starfinder can get 1% of virtual tabletop, why couldn't Star Frontiers, if Wizards of the Coast, put their money back? Maybe because they're getting 50% right now, and that's just a waste of 1%. So why even try it? But my point would still stand. If we could get an organized play going with it, maybe we can make enough waves. And a couple people have suggested to me that are in our little group that if we could get it in schools, it could be part of the I think it's the STEM program, where it's sciences, where you can make a supplement for schools for science teachers to teach exploration. And what would you get if you went to this planet and it was based in a different, instead of carbon based, it was different. Or what would you find? And they'll allow it to run it in their schools. If you could sell it to schools as a system, and therefore kids would play it and then want to actually play the game, because what Wizards of the Coast have done with it now is they've put it in hardcover version on Drive Through RPG, and you can order it, so it's not like it's out of print. Kids could still get it and play it, and if it went to the school systems, maybe it would make enough waves that Wizards of the Coast would again take notice of it and make that IP viable again. I don't think it's a game that should go away personally. So that's what I do in off time.
Well, that's one hell of an off time.
Yeah, well, it's tilting at windmills, but I like doing that. So
we all have to tilt at windmills once in a while. That's fine. So, as we've gotten here, it's great because we've barely touched on Black Label number 4.
Right.
Now, I want to touch on it briefly.
Sure.
Black Label number 4 is Lair of the Slaver Succubus. Now, we've touched on the Succubus prior. So, where did this idea come from? I'm dying to hear, because I love the cover. But where did the idea of this adventure come from?
Well, it comes from the Burning City novel that I wrote. And basically what the Burning City is, it's a city that was cursed to be kind of lost in time in the Nameless Realms, which is my world, right? And it's got this flame that rises up from it into the sky, and anybody that goes in can't go out. They never are seen again. So I wrote a novel about what actually happens if you go in. But some of the novel takes place outside of it, and there's I call her succubus. That's just my pronunciation. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. But anyway,
it's one of those. We all learned D&D words and monster names
at our gaming table. So people hear our stuff like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah. Anyway, so the succubus or whatever her name. So she takes place in the beginning of the novel. She is out in the something called the Ashlands, which is the area that surrounds these wastes, and she enslaves people and then sends them as slaves to be, consumed in the burning city. So I've kind of taken a page from Conan here, where the movie Conan the Barbarian, where a princess or a noble girl is taken and the father wants her back, right? So the party will go out and have to deal with the succubus in her lair and the various slavers and demon insects that infest this place. And it is a low-level module, so I've toned everything down, so it's not like, oh, demons, we can't fight them. No, you can. But anyway, so it's a decent dungeon crawl, and that's what takes place. And then there'll be a 3-step process in this because it's a 3-parter. And I don't know if it'll ever get inside the burning city because, again, once you get in, you can't get out. So I don't know if people want to lose their characters to that. But you still can take it. You could take it as a part of it and play it somewhere else.
Okay.
With a different curse. Nevertheless, it depends on what storyline you wanted to run with it. But that's where it goes in, and that's who you'll be fighting, kind of a erotically charged kind of adventure where, I think I've got some like berserker cannibals in there and, these demon insects and stuff like that. So, it should be fun. Yeah, the fun stuff. So it'll be different. But yeah, and Candela and Duchess are in it. Of course, getting into trouble is always in my examples, and that's one of the things that I drew from Paizo. They were the first ones that kind of did. I mean, D&D 3rd edition did it, but they didn't do it like Paizo, where they had iconics, which are their various characters that always appear in their adventure paths, and you get those characters. So I started doing that with mine, where Roslov Keep has the same characters, and then of course they go as high-level characters to Curse of Roslov Keep, and then there's another set of iconics for the Cities of Sorcery and also for the White Ship campaign, and then this one has the iconics as well, Duchess and Candela, which get shown in all the art, so you kind of have a flow through of a storyline. You get to see them getting into stupid situations, and, whatever. So, yeah.
Oh, see there. So our hex crawl actually reached a final destination. That was, like I said before we started recording this, the actual process of getting there is going to be where all the fun is, and this is good because you actually we had some great questions from our live listeners. The things that I was going to ask about Kickstarter projects. I was like, oh, I don't have to ask them because they're being asked by others. So it really is spot on. Scott, man, really thank you because I've known you for years.
Yep.
And it's always been me on my phone answering a text or whatever. But
I try to check in on you like every other week or so just to make sure see what you're doing. I do. I always make sure.
It is great. So I'm glad we finally got a chance to talk. Yeah. So it's been fun. And, I mean, I've known your face, but I've not seen your face in the interactive sense of the word.
No, this has been fun. Yeah, we'll have to do it again because this is fun.
Definitely. Listen, I'm happy to do this. You obviously know to keep in touch with me when you have new releases coming out. I will advise others out there, if you have projects, don't hesitate to reach me on Facebook or email 10carstavern@gmail.com. I'm happy to do what I can to add a little visibility.
You're great.
As such as it is.
Definitely helped me out all these years, so I appreciate it.
No, dude, I'm happy to. We all have a role to play within the community. You have certainly found yours. I think I found mine.
Yeah.
And I think it works out well, folks. This is going to be a busy week for live streams. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Myself and I got to decline this. My son is, of course, trying to break through. God damn it, you've been on for too long. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, in support of TotalCon, Bad Mike and myself are doing 4 nights of Talking Crit. Alan Hammock, Jim Wampler, Zach Glazer, and on Friday it's going to be myself, Bad Mike, Glenn Hallstrom, and Joe the Lawyer. So we're going to have a full and possibly some other guests that might drop in. We're working on it. So should be a good week.
Sounds like a good week.
Again, Scott, thank you. Everybody who's been listening, thank you. And I don't know, as usual, be safe, be well. God bless for all those dice. In the world of COVID, use your common sense. We're not medical professionals. I'm not giving you advice. Just saying common sense. Come on. Somebody's got to have it.
As I always say, great gaming.
There you go. All right.
All right.
Folks, we're out of here. Later.
Bye.